Hi, I'm Schadt, CEO of DoubleHorn. Today I'm joined by Alfredo Ramirez, CEO of Vyopta. How you doing?
Doing fine, thank you.
Thanks for joining. We're going to dive in today and talk a little bit about leadership, strategy, and of course Vyopta. But before we get started, let's tell us a little bit about how you got in your role, your current role.
So one, I've been in enterprise software for well over 25 years, and most recently co-founded 3 different companies. This is the third of 3. The last company I co-founded was acquired by Oracle in the around 2007, meaning that our additional two co-founders started Vyopta with the premise where our hypothesis was going to be around video starting to be adopted at a quicker rate, and we totally believed that we could develop software on top of the video platforms to drive greater efficiencies in sales and services and telehealth. What we learned in about 5 years after that, it just didn't quite grow as quickly in the market, and we pivoted the business to what Vyopta is today. I've really enjoyed the experience and the people that I've met.
Yeah, it's a roller coaster ride. I mean, anybody that started a company, and it's funny, you just as a side note, talk about pivot. There was a first installment or first chapter of an ebook that we authored, and it's called Pivoting with Purpose. Pivot with Purpose, and it's literally about things don't ever end up the way you think when you're starting out. So I totally in line with that. Let's talk a little bit about leadership and throughout these, because what I've found is that question asked to people in very large organizations, and that's the only place they've been, elicits a slightly different response than someone with your background who's experienced large companies, experienced the startups, and then into some more mature environments. What do you think makes separates what I would call good leadership from excellent leadership? What are those attributes that when you see an employee or you see a team member or a peer, that those commonalities?
Well, I'd say the basic attributes. Obviously, you have to have a clear strategy and vision. But at the end of the day, also is you have to be agile. You have to be able to relate to the people that work with you, and I wouldn't say for you, because really it's a team. Yeah, there is a hierarchy, but at the end of the day, you're going to be doing some of the work as well, potentially, especially at the very early stage. And as the company's growing, it's important. I'd say the other major key attributes are the ability to solve problems. And in technology, I would say is I wouldn't say it's absolutely unique to technology, the technology market, but it's one of a few markets that's changing at a very fast pace. So you have to be agile, and the people that you're working with have to be able to modify or change positions. And so it's not just problem solving, but it's learning, testing, adjusting, making adjustments,
constant adaptation.
And I preach this to our company: is a technology company's age is like a dog year. It's like a dog's age.
I would agree.
And so we don't create 3-year plans or 2-year plans. The furthest we go is a year, and there might be some modifications along the way.
Yeah. What about, let's talk a little bit about developing people. So I couldn't agree more with those attributes you mentioned about agility and really all hands on deck. I mean, early on, it's like titles are titles. What you're really asking everybody to do is rally to the cause and get over some serious obstacles, so then you can have some more of those mature conversations. But if you don't get over some of the initial obstacles, like you said, anything past a year is up for grabs. So when you see folks that join, and you see some what you would maybe call a rising star, somebody that is showing some signs of leadership that maybe some others aren't, how do you go about providing mentors, resources for them? And I'm asking that not only from you directly, but how do you get them what they need? Because not everyone's coached the same. Some folks are going to rise to the occasion, some are going to fold, unfortunately. But how do you go about providing a mentor program?
What I've seen is people that have leadership attributes, you start seeing that people start rallying around them. You start seeing that someone is confident enough, doesn't lose confidence when they're encountering problems, because as you could probably relate to, young early stage companies, you're going to encounter a lot of obstacles and challenges.
Lots.
And there's not a clear path. You have to deal and manage to ambiguity at times.
Yes.
That's just life
Yeah.
in general, I think. But in the technology companies, it happens at a faster pace.
Yeah.
And so the people that typically do well in organizations like that are people that can deal with that.
Yeah.
It's a different character that you're looking for in people, and I'd say that we aren't perfect at hiring people.
Do you guys go down that path to test for that? Or do you take it to that extreme, or do you use the gut, which the gut can tell you a lot?
We just started using assessment tests.
Oh, you did? How's it working out?
Well, we just started, literally about a month ago. But that's more of an indicator. It's not it's kind of like your index.
Right.
It's not we don't use it to necessarily make a decision, yes, Alfredo is the right person or not. It's more of an indicator, oh my gosh, everything's red, probably not a good idea to move ahead.
No matter what my gut says, this would be a bad decision.
Yeah. Very early on, we have now people taking an assessment.
What was the impetus to that?
You get to a size where I can't be in every interview.
Yep.
And so I can't just rely on my gut.
Right.
As you were putting it earlier.
You have a bad day, then that's a bad hire. You know? Yeah.
We don't know everything, and people that we bring on, we're looking to them to add to just a different brick or chip to the puzzle to help improve our overall knowledge base and capabilities to grow.
Yeah, I think it is a mixture of that kind of a formalized structured test, like you said, just to make sure that there's not reds everywhere. And then after that, kind of you got to bring in some of that just behavioral piece, sit down and see how you interact with them, and because the DNA is just critical. Because if they're not going to fit in an environment, it doesn't matter what they know. You know, it gets.
You can elongate the interview cycle. I don't know if you've read Laszlo Bock's book, the former head of people operations at Google. Prior to him joining, they have very long interview cycles, and in a market where you've got little supply of labor that you're targeting,
super tight. Yeah,
you can't afford to have a long interview cycle.
Right.
But too, if you shorten it too much, then you're gambling a lot more too.
Yeah.
So that was part of the reason that we're testing it with our sales organization, where we're going to expand that to other functions.
Good. I want to go back to mentors for a second. How do you keep sharp? And I always think this is a great question for CEOs when someone's not walking in the office, they don't have maybe the formal plan. Maybe you get it through a board of directors, or maybe you just have a professional coach. I mean, all of those are good, but how do you go about that? About staying on top of your game and really having an outlet?
Currently, our investors and board of directors are a version of that. I've got one of our advisors to the company is an executive coach. He's a former CEO.
Oh my goodness! Well, that's
almost 15 different companies. So I've been fortunate.
That's fantastic.
Recently, from that standpoint, prior to Vyopta, I would just rely. I mean, I'd meet people, and people I would gravitate to would be around, an area or subject matter that I had an interest that would help, our business, or that I would engage with that person then.
Right.
But in general, I'll say just a life approach I take. I wouldn't say I look for mentors, but I just try to find teaching moments. It could be a kid. You're interacting with your own kids. You're interacting with anyone, and you could always learn something.
Yeah.
So I would say, in general, anyone could be the ad hoc mentor.
No, that's a good way to look at it. You're never on top of it to the point to where you can't be a sponge. Let's kind of shift to strategy a little bit. You mentioned pivots in your past and yearly plans, and especially technology companies. How do you go about making sure the strategy gets the buy-in? First of all, is there a framework or a method that you use when you say, okay, we need to adjust or develop a strategy, and then the buy-in and the execution? How do you go about that?
So one is start with having a vision. So like for Vyopta, it's our vision is to deliver UC intelligence to businesses anywhere around the world, so they can figure out how to get the most out of those communication investments. And what that means is how do they drive more sales, drive greater customer retention,
right?
Deliver healthcare, and so then you can develop strategy, and strategies can be longer term. Plans can change, obviously, to support that. And I would say from a strategy perspective, a lot will come up with, like myself and maybe my leadership team. We'll once a year we go back and reevaluate. Hey, does this strategy still make sense? I think the most important is you got your vision, you set up goals. Sometimes the goals you don't have are defined because you don't have any history because it's something new that you're doing, and so then you can adjust those on a different frequency than maybe a goal for an area of your business that you already have a lot of history for.
Right. Let's talk a little bit about Vyopta. Where do you see the competition coming from? I looked at your site. Let me just give a little bit of background to that question. So the genesis of DoubleHorn has some communication roots, and to this day we still deliver unified communication services to customers we've had for over 10 years. And there was always, the channel was very hard to define, because the channel could all of a sudden be your competition, or the provider that you maybe were reselling could be your competition, or something you were OEMing could be your competition. In other words, if some of the larger companies decided to make their pivot, which can make you get into almost a complete overhaul, where do you see the growth challenges or the competition coming as you guys go forward?
Let me think how best to answer that, because, well, one, our current competition today is a number of types of vendors. The manufacturers or the OEMs of the communications technologies, they all have their own specific capabilities around monitoring and reporting and analytics.
Yeah, but just for their devices.
Just for their, for
systems.
their products, right.
Yeah, right.
And so we've got a broader footprint because we cover a lot of different applications now, I guess you can call it communications applications. So then there's different types of vendors, like possibly the network performance monitoring companies moving in that have VoIP monitoring capabilities. I'd say this UC market, or UCM or UC intelligence, it's a niche market that's just starting to grow. So I would say there a lot of the potential and kind of I'd say our existing competition from like a lot of the network performance management tool vendors have very weak products because their core competencies are around the network.
That's right.
And but at some point, this niche market is going to start growing, kind of like the APM market 10 years ago.
Yep.
It was a niche market, and all of a sudden you have New Relic, App Dynamics,
and a
ton of other of those companies. I see UCM or UCI being that niche market that's starting to grow.
Yeah, and you can hold them off because your customers are using multiple systems or applications. That's where they're going to gel well with you, because at that particular point, that one system monitoring capability, that one-to-one is not going to be good enough for a company that's multinational and using 5 different vendors, right?
And what we're seeing, so our typical customer has at least 1,000 knowledge workers, and what we're finding, they typically have anywhere from 4 to 6 communication technology investments, and in many cases they even have more than that. Because they may have an old PBX system that they haven't quite migrated to a new VoIP system, but yet they've got maybe a conferencing cloud service provider for their communication needs, for meetings, and so right there alone you got 3 systems. Oh, and by the way, they may have some video systems too. Now they're starting to adopt it, so it may be a different manufacturer, OEM, for that. And
then you got
messaging with Slack or Atlassian,
and all the different devices that the employees bring into the environment. Yeah, it gets pretty big. Well, what's the plan for growth? Have you said to get to the next level, and you can define that, whether that's geography or whether that's a number of logos or endpoints. I mean, how do you guys, maybe the question is, how do you measure growth, and then what's the plan to get there?
Well, we've focused, from the time we pivoted the business from 2013 to last year, so about 4.5 years around just video. we started and meeting technologies, and so we expanded our footprint into voice, and the voice market's massive compared to video.
Yeah.
So typically, and you can probably relate to this from the DoubleHorn customer base, voice call traffic's probably anywhere from 90 to at the low, at the high, it could be 98% of the total communications traffic.
Absolutely.
Between video and voice.
Yeah.
But we're seeing video growing at a much faster pace, and so for us to grow quickly, we moved into voice and messaging, because typically now most organizations are buying unified communications.
Right.
And so, but it's not to cover the whole organization yet. So it's just, they're adding, they look at their strategic functions, let's say sales or services, and they want them to better engage, and they want that communications technology integrated better with their applications that they're using for sales or service delivery. So.
Yeah, good stuff. As we kind of wrap up a little bit more about your company, you guys segment, like you just talked about 4 to 6 applications, 1,000 knowledge workers. Those are very interesting facts. But what about a further segmentation in terms of market or space? I mean, in terms of really attacking the market.
Yeah, we don't focus on verticals because it's a horizontal play for us.
Okay.
And so size of organization, we typically, the large organizations have very complex environments, and so they have greater pain to really understand what's going on in those environments. Yeah. And we kind of look at our solution pillars around, at a minimum, executives expect their communications environment just to work. And so we focus on quality and reliability as one aspect of that. If they can check off that, then they can start focusing on, hey, on the new communications investments that we've made, they can start looking at, all right, how is it being used? What groups have adopted it? And start working on the cost optimization aspect of it as well. The other aspect of this solution pillar, the next solution pillar is around, well, what value am I getting out of these investments?
Yeah, what's the real ROI? Yeah, absolutely.
Am I driving more sales? Am I serving more healthcare patient? Or am I seeing more patients for my telehealth investment, in this technology? Yeah.
Thanks for joining, everyone. We look forward to seeing you at our next C-Level chat. Thanks.